Hi, I'm MJ from Linus Publications. And today we're going to have just a short session on Oregon. I know a lot of people were worried because Trump is saying he's sending troops in and all this type of stuff. So I said, let me take a quick look at Oregon. I did, and I'm not seeing anything especially concerning. There may be some action, but it doesn't look like it's going to be long-lived. So let's take a look at some of the details here. First, I've got some progression, and I've got some transits that I want to talk about. On 1010, we've got Jupiter trying Neptune. This is actually a great angle. And this is indicating that, in effect, they're being more culturally open. They're more expanding in their visions. They are looking at compassionate policymaking. All of these are pretty good. And it's something that Oregon is sort of known for. Sort of like the center, slightly to the left of center, sort of caring about the people. And that's what Jupiter is. Jupiter is expanding what? Neptune, the vision. Now, in some cases, it could also affect and expand things like drugs, stuff like that. But, and the trine is saying it's an easy flow. So I'm not thinking it's going to be a big issue with the drugs, but it could be. The next thing we have is 1023, and this is a progression. And this is one that's indicating it's a Sun conjunct Saturn. So what is that? Sun is the evolved identity of the state of Oregon. What is it hitting? It is hitting, in effect, structure, walls. What are those walls? Probably Trump. So it's probably this force that's going to be coming in. So what does that mean? Well, number one, it means that the leadership is going to be under pressure. So they're going to have to identify how to act here and determine whether any of the laws prevent, any of their state laws prevent what is happening. The state also has to grow up. In effect, if state laws don't prevent this, what they have to do is they have to start looking at implementing new laws. Okay, even if it ends up going to the Supreme Court, they have to put laws into effect that do not take their rights away as a state. Now, next thing is structural reform. And this is what I mean. They have to stop beefing up their institutions. They have to start looking at what laws they need to put into place. And they have to handle this momentary pressure from the Trump administration, because it will determine how they are going to fare as a state later down the line. Next thing we have is on 1113, we have Uranus square both the south and the north nodes. Now, in this case, this is Uranus is change, meaning you need to change things. What do they need to change? Their outdated systems. So, in effect, they have to look at how they're governing their state and whether or not they have done enough to stop crime. And if they haven't, they need to look at their laws. So they need to handle that. Now, they may have some shifts in policies to address that. Now, there's a volatility here because it's Uranus. Uranus likes change quick, it doesn't like to wait. But this could also provide a breakthrough in civil rights. So depending on where Oregon goes with this, it could be sort of like a path for other states to follow. So that's sort of important. Now, on 1121, we've got Uranus actually conjuncting Uranus. This only happens once every 84 years. That's the cycle of Uranus. For most people, they have this happen right around 84 years of age. And at that time, what do you feel like? You feel like you're liberated. You feel like you're sort of out into, the last part of your life and you don't have to, pay attention to what doesn't work anymore. You can change that. That's what's going to happen to the state. Uranus is something that's going to tell it, get freedom here. So what does it mean? Innovation, maybe rebellion. And this is going to be happening again, 1121. So it may be renewing their systems, so bringing things up to date. It may be looking at both tech and social upheavals. And most importantly, it could be a political awakening. When people see what's being done to their state, they may be all for changing their laws to prevent this from happening again. And this could lead other states to do the same thing. It's one thing if a state is actually experiencing a war in that state. In this case, that's not happening. In that case, the governor should request the federal government for help. The federal government should just not make the decision by itself. Next thing we have, this Uranus, conjunct Uranus, can actually spark political changes. It's going to act as a catalyst for long overdue changes. So pretty much everything I'm mentioning here doesn't sound like it's going to be a horrible, force coming in to destroy, to control, to dominate, except we do have momentary things here. I never get down to Mars or usually Venus in the transits unless it could sort of add to the reading a little bit. Because Mars hits on a planet in such little time that it usually doesn't build up to actually cause anything unless something else is there. So if you have a Pluto with a square Uranus and then Mars comes in and makes an angle to that, yeah, it can act as a trigger. But usually Mars by itself is sort of just, causing some aggression, but then it moves right on to the next planet. Now, in this case, we've got Mars sitting right around 4 degrees of Scorpio, and Pluto in the natal chart of Oregon, is sitting at 5 degrees Taurus. So in about 1 degree, Mars is going to be conjuncting Pluto. So this is an opposition. What could that mean? Well, it could mean that aggression is coming to what? Control in the state. So from a simplest point, it could be that they're trying to force something on the state itself, manipulate the state. Now, it could mean that they do this by putting troops in, but it doesn't seem like an overt action of, in effect, trying to take over. Okay, so it may just simply be, in effect, being, small force that goes along with the ice, or it may not be. We'll see. Now, the thing is, right after that Mars opposition to Pluto, we have a Mars square to Saturn. Saturn is at 7 Leo. So after it finishes that square to Pluto, it's going to come along to the square to Saturn. So what is this? Mars is rebellion against the authority. Okay, so Mars is trying to be aggressive, and what happens? Authority comes back. So it's the authority from the state. So this could be the state immediately putting through some lawsuit to stop this. We'll have to see. Now, so far, I'm not seeing anything else involved in this Pluto-Mars opposition for progression or a solar arc or a heavier transit. So it's there. I want to mention it, but I'm not concerned that it's going to be something that is not something people could not envision anyway. Now, lastly, once Mars finishes the square to Saturn, it's actually going to move on to a square to Mercury. Mercury. So communications, moving. So again, this could be moving of troops, trying to get troops in, not being able to move them. So there are some things that indicate some movement, some, confrontations, but nothing at this point that I'm saying is leading to some horrible outcome. Okay, but we'll keep track of this. Hope you enjoyed this. Have a good day.